This is A Few Good Fights, proudly brought to you by the MMA Movement. I'm Noel O'Keefe, he's Robert Palin.
How's it going, man?
And he's Sean Taylor. So you might notice that things are a little different, looking different. Obviously being Paddy's Day, we are doing this from home. So Sean's cabin Wi-Fi will play up throughout, but we are going to go through some of the big talking points this week. So the big MMA news, we'll have Educating Young Sean, and we'll have Sean's Weird News. So as we said, this is slightly different because it's a bank holiday here in Ireland. So we will be back to normal next week. But yeah, let's dive into it and get straight away into the big MMA news. So this is the big MMA news this week. So lads, it was obviously a lot of fallout from UFC London at the weekend. So no better place to start than there. So Jorge Masvidal, Rob, we all went and picked Darren Till in the show last week. And it's funny when you sort of say this with one another, but like we can back another story if you like. Yeah. Oh, man, Jorge Masvidal is a live dog in this. I'm like, I'd nearly back him, you know what I mean? I think a lot of people are looking past Jorge Masvidal. But before we talk about us being very insightful offline and not on camera, what did you think of the fight? I'll say that to you first, Rob. What was your opinions watching the fight?
It was a little surprising, I thought, in a few different ways. The way Jorge Masvidal immediately came out very, very quickly, and of course he had that nut shot right off the bat. Obviously he didn't mean that, but he came out really, really quickly. And the same with Darren Till. It was both guys come out extremely quickly, and even though Darren Till said he wanted a first round finish, I didn't expect it to be that frantic that quickly. So I guess when it started, I was a bit surprised on how quickly it got going.
I'd agree with that. I know Till had sort of mentioned that he wanted it to get it done in the first round. Almost looked like he'd done it after the groin strike straight away. He landed that big left hand that dropped Masvidal. And I love what Masvidal was saying. He's like, I landed on my butt, and I was thinking, if you let me back up, I'm gonna fucking murder you. But I was surprised when Till actually went down to the ground with him. I thought he might have. Now I know he was stacking him and hammering fist. And, it looked like
played a big man
it looked
game
like
there.
The end was near. Yeah, but I think like Masvidal, when you looked at Masvidal, a lot of people, he hasn't fought in so long, and because he had a couple of losses, when you look at Jorge Masvidal's career and his record, it's really understated. Like, as in, all his losses are like close split decisions or losses in that sense, where he's being outpointed and outfought. But like, I think in some ways, like, I think Darren Till got lulled into a Jorge Masvidal fight. He should, like, it was almost like, you know, Masvidal said it, you know, you're a young bull and you'll be the tiger or something soon. I was like, using two different analogies is weird, but
the king of analogies over there, Noel O'Keefe.
Now I just thought, stick with the one animal, you know what I mean? Maybe call him a young, you know, upcoming bull. I don't know, whatever. But I was surprised that Darren got into that type of fight because it became a firefight. And what Darren Till was doing was throwing single shots in the firefight, while Masvidal was throwing to use his beautiful wording, you know what I mean, 3-piece and soda, like, you know what I mean. He was throwing soda. He can just glide out of there. He was throwing combinations in shots, and I think he even mentioned, I think post fight, that the first round he couldn't find Till's timing, and then he started to get his timing. And he knew that Darren, when he was backing off sort of frames with his hands out in front of him, puts his hands like that framing out, and just came over the top with that leap and left lead.
That's
hook, over.
That's what I was going to say, is that it really showed the experience, I think. And even though Darren Till has, you know, years and years of experience in striking and in MMA, to be fair, he's not like he's not this young gun who barely has any experience. But I just thought the fact that you could see how much his game was working really early, that big left hand, and then as the fight went on, Masvidal really picked up on those patterns, the footwork that he was using, and the fact that Darren Till, in his defense, he always leans away all the time. That's his defense, which is a good thing at times, but then you could see how that Tyron Woodley-esque shot can land, because Till always does that same kind of lean back defense. So I really thought that it showed Masvidal his experience fighting. He picked up on those patterns.
What was your take on it, Sean?
I think Till very much got lulled into a sense that Jorge couldn't really knock him out. I think like Jorge doesn't really have that many knockouts on his record. The one that I kind of thought of was, I don't like a boxing one, Frampton Warrington in December. Frampton had spoke massively in the build-up about Warrington couldn't knock him out. The only way he could win was on points. Maybe not so much to the same extent with Till, but I still think he might have felt that Masvidal couldn't hurt him to the extent that he did.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he took some big shots from Masvidal and he stayed there probably played into that as well.
And it's Masvidal, and I have to say, like, Masvidal was so respect, and that's it. Like, you know what, Masvidal. So I seen somebody tweet something actually, and they said Jorge Masvidal is more of a Diaz brother than the Diaz brothers at this stage. But like, he hugely respectful in victory. Like what he said with Darren about Darren Till, you know, being the young bull and stuff like that. Like that takes class to do that. And he'd mentioned, you know, like Till hits hard, he's going to be a killer. He's like, but you know, he fights the way I fight, where you put yourself in danger to land a kill shot, but you put yourself in the kill shot zone as well. So I think Masvidal absolutely like nailed his post fight. He nailed everything, and like realistically, I know Ali Al-Aziz is just, you know, he talks absolute shite, like, but you know, that type of finish to finish Darren Till in that type of fashion, it does in a way give him, like, if they made Usman Masvidal, you're not angry at it because of that type of finish. Like how he finished the fight was such a statement that it's you know, realistically, does he get the shot? Like, is it unfair if he does, if he out jumps? Like, because like I know a lot of people, we were all talking about Ben Askren, who was there and in attendance. But Ben Askren, you know, as much as we all spoke about it and we agreed the fight was finished, Robbie Lawler, whatever, I had no qualms with the finish. I thought Ben Askren would have finished him anyway if I hadn't stopped at that time. But with the question marks over that, and then with Masvidal coming out and laying out Darren Till the way he did, surely that's a bigger statement. I know Colby is sitting there, but again, you know, we had said it's made until something better comes along. And did Jorge Masvidal become that something better that came along?
That interim title is a number one contender until the UFC decide it's not. Like, and I think with a statement like that, you can say that's not anymore.
I agree. On that as well. On that, I think you're right with Masvidal. He's like weirdly insightful, isn't he? But not in the right way. Like, not in the normal way. As in, he's not like a Dominic Cruz who has this big vocabulary and will go out there and talk. But he's just as insightful as that. Yeah. But he just says it in a very Jorge Masvidal street way. Yeah,
very
it's great.
Miami.
But
so, like, somebody had shared the interview we had done with Ariel Helwani back when he was on MMA era. And he was saying something, you know, where I'm from, you know, you got to have a good sucker punch in a 50-yard dash, you know. And like, he's very appealing, and like, I think like I remember, I can't actually remember what win it was over. I have to think about that, but I remember he sat down. I remember Robin Black was doing sort of sitting down in the restaurant with him and having a chat. I think it might have been after the Jake Ellenberger fight. I'm not 100% sure, but it was real. He was being built to being the next guy, like, and then he came up against two very different specialists. Damian Moya, obviously, you know, jiu-jitsu specialist, and then Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, you know, that distance and range, you couldn't get in there. But I think, like, in hindsight, and I certainly, you know, I love the way, like, MMA, like, people are running down Darren Till, like Piers Morgan, what a fucking cunt.
What?
Piers Morgan, like, because Darren Till had commented on something on Instagram. Piers Morgan had said a while ago, saying all you need is a smack in the chin or something like that. So as soon as the fight was over, Morgan shared that, saying you're very quiet, you're very quiet now or something, you know.
Oh my god.
Morgan's a prick.
He's such a troll, isn't he?
Yeah, the vultures will always circle when somebody loses, you know. But like, I do think Darren Till will come back. He'll need to change his plan, but I think when he really watches that fight, he might think, I should have approached this fight the way I approached Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Yeah,
and just to roll back as well on your other question, because I kind of didn't answer it. I don't think Masvidal should get the next title fight, just because, as you said, he did lose 2 fights on the trot before that. They were close enough fights. Not really the Thompson fight, but I thought he done a great job against Moya in a very difficult fight for him. I don't even know if Colby is next either, because Colby has just sat out way too long. I think at that point when Darren Till was brought in to fight Woodley, I think that was the point when Colby can call for it. But now, I just think that he sat out way too long. I think it happened to was it Josh Koscheck a good few years ago? I can't remember who it was, but he sat out for a long time waiting for a title fight, and it just doesn't work. You're out of the limelight for too long, and I do think that it's really the person who makes the biggest impact recently is who's going to get the title fight, and that's why Jorge Masvidal might get it. I just don't think he should get it right now, but there's plenty of fights for him there.
Like we
I have
do
no problem with seeing Colby get screwed over as well. Like,
we do
Piers
say
Morgan
like,
of MMA.
even when we're putting this show together, and like there might be something news from last week, and we go, that was last Tuesday, and that's how quick news moves. So MMA is the same, and like Colby Compton hasn't fought since he beat RDA back in like June of last year. You know what I mean? And like I know there's been fighters who are like champions who have been out longer and haven't been stripped and stuff like that. But when you're not the champion and you're only the #1 contender, when you're inactive for that period of time, we're talking 8-9 months. When you're inactive for that long, there's new contenders that come up through the ranks, you know. So he needs to get in there, and it needs to be sorted. But like I just think as well now, like with Ali sort of being the manager of Usman, you know, he's got to say some amount of shit as well.
That's,
like,
and Ali, he seems to have a serious I guess, I don't know if backing is the right word, but it seems like the UFC take him very, very seriously. Probably because he has so many big fighters under his banner, under his management group, that his opinion does matter when it comes to the UFC. It seems like they do listen to him, so that could be a big thing. He
does seem to have a bit of sway.
He definitely does. But you were mentioning the interim title. The interim title is almost like a car, isn't it? It's like you'll get it, and then immediately when you buy it, it just depreciates straight away as down. It's pretty much the interim title. It's a car.
Just driving a brand new car off the forecourt straight away, 10 grand off the value of it.
UFC got the value out of it by the pay-per-view buys because of the belt being on the line, but then it's no use to you. That.
No.
So Jorge Masvidal went 2-0 on the night. Backstage, that was insane, and I think, sorry, before I get to that, actually, Darren Till, was that a worse defeat than the Woodley defeat?
Yes, because of the knockout. I think it was a very, very bad knockout, where physically it was worse, because you kind of think the Woodley fight was more dominant in striking than it was. Like, he dropped him and he was definitely hurt, but then the finish came with his choke. But this one was a knockout that can change careers. We've seen plenty of careers being changed by things like this. So I think in that sense it was, and probably the fact that he was expected to win against Masvidal, that it probably will affect him a bit more. A lot of people did underestimate Tyron Woodley for a long time, but I still think people agree that was a tough fight for him with the wrestling, even though it didn't come to that, but the wrestling was going to be difficult. But with Masvidal, a lot of people just thought that, you know, Till was going to run through him. And I listened to loads of podcasts, and there was people saying that this was like a gimme for Darren Till. It was an easy fight. We obviously didn't agree with that, but genuinely go back and listen to some podcasts. I'll give it to you after this. Don't want to say it publicly. People were like, this is easy. It's an easy fight. So I think it will hurt him a little bit.
And I think it is foolish. Like, I know, and again, we all picked Darren Till, but it is foolish to look past anyone in the UFC, especially top 10. Like, Jorge Masvidal is a top 10 fighter. When you look at who he's lost to, he's lost a specialist recently, as I said. But yeah, Darren Till, I'll put this one to you, Sean. Is this the last time we see Darren Till compete at 170?
I was actually just going to raise that one myself. I think I kind of hope so. I know he's looked like he's made the weight quite nicely the last two fights. But I just think he might be so depleted at the weight that, like, I think if he takes that shot from Masvidal or at 185, I don't think he gets knocked out. Like,
that's the big thing, is the weight cut again, isn't it? The water on the brain, how heavy was the cook? Would he have taken that punch? But Masvidal said during the fight as well, you know, I hit him with some serious shots before that, and he walked through them no problem. So
there is the element of as well, like Masvidal said, he doesn't throw that shot as well. So like when you're not expecting it, it's a bit different when you're not preparing for it. But yeah, I kind of hope it is. He's not getting a title shot at 170 anytime soon anyway. So
yeah, it's really knocked him down the pecking order.
Do you think
do
you think that people were almost talking about that too much? Like, I remember after the fight finished, I think it was Dan Hardy, I think Bisping might have been there. I'm not sure who it was, but it was a few of them were talking, and that was a big talking point, where that, you know, the weight was an issue. But we kind of talked about it a while ago. It seemed like he's kind of fixed that weight cutting thing. I do think he's better suited to middleweight, but I don't really see how that performance was affected too much by the weight cut. Maybe he could have taken that shot if he was completely there, hydrated and fit. But I don't know. I think a lot of people are leaning on that very much. I think it's kind of taken away from Masvidal a little bit.
I don't think it's one to be leaned on. I think it's noteworthy as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it's one to be leaned on, especially like it makes a difference that Masvidal doesn't throw that shot too often. So like Darren Till wouldn't have got too many looks at that in sparring. He wouldn't have been expecting it at all.
I agree with that.
I agree. Like, I don't think the weight cut actually had an issue. I just think Darren Till. I think you put anybody on the end of that shot that lands, and they're all getting knocked out the same way.
Yeah,
I think Till is shown he can take shots. He took shots from Masvidal that night. He just got into a firefight, and he was the one who got sniped. That could have been the end of the night when Darren Till landed that first left hand. You know what I mean? Yeah. The first big left hand could have done the same to Jorge Masvidal. And that's the two of them played like a real game of Russian roulette. It was, which shot had the bullet in the chamber, and it turned out it was in the left hand of Jorge Masvidal. Let's go and look at the co-main, and then we'll talk about the afters on ESPN.
Yeah.
But Leon Edwards gets a really big win over Gunnar Nelson, and I'd said leading into this one, I think a lot of people are underestimating Gunnar Nelson, and Rob, you said a lot of people are underestimating Leon Edwards, but
and then we both picked Gunny.
Yeah, I don't think many people were expecting Leon Edwards to go in there and grapple with Gunnar Nelson.
No, it was kind of surprising. Well, it wasn't surprising if you watch the way he normally fights, because that's the way he normally fights. Yeah. He generally will fight where the fight goes, and he does well there. I'm talking about Edwards. So it's not surprising that he done that. It's just a little bit surprising that he had so much success doing it. But I think he was very, very clever in the way he done it. He didn't get into any exchanges with Nelson. He only grappled when he was in a dominant position. And I know that sounds a bit counterintuitive, like, because like that's probably when you always should grapple. But like when he had the back, he stayed on the back. When he had this like on the side, when he had his hands clasped, he stayed there. But anytime Gunnar Nelson got into any kind of position where maybe he could have reversed it, he backed out and he started striking again. So I thought it was a very, very clever performance.
I really like
that. Clearly wasn't.
Sorry, Sean. No, you go ahead.
That clearly wasn't the game plan from Edwards as well. Because if you listen to his corner when he went after the first round, they were like, "Okay, that was nice. Let's bring it back to the game plan."
Yeah, let's get back. Yeah.
What I thought was beautiful was he identified that Gunny keeps his hands low after they separate in a grappling exchange, and that elbow that like it looks like it broke the orbital, fractured the orbital of Gunny, that blew up straight away. But yeah, like I have to say I was really surprised by Leon Edwards. I didn't think he'd win the fight in that fashion. Now the only thing I would say, like, and again, like I'll confess, I'm a Gunnar Nelson fan. I love the guy, but if that was going into round 4 and 5, which it wasn't, so it's in some ways it's a silly point. But Gunny got full mount with a minute to go on the clock, and I think Leon Edwards did a phenomenal job of not letting Gunny do anything in that minute. He really, broke his posture and held him down, and Gunny was trying to battle through it where he needed to throw heavy shots or go for a home run submission. So Edwards, credit to him. Didn't allow that to happen, although he was mounted. But it would have been interesting if that one went into around 3 and 4. It didn't, so phenomenal. 4 and 5. Yeah, what did I say? 3 and 4.
Yeah.
So phenomenal performance by Leon Edwards, and like when you look at that now, like for Leon Edwards, he's on an absolute killer of a win streak. The fact that him and Darren Till in the lead up to this were mounting off at each other, I'm the best bloody at it. Edwards can walk away from London saying, I'm on a 7-fight win streak. The last guys that I've beaten, Gunnar Nelson and Donald Cowboy Cerrone, you know what I mean? I'm there and thereabouts in this division now, So it'd be interesting to see who they match Edwards up with, and potentially after what happened, we're talking about will Masvidal get the next title shot, but what happened, seems to make sense that it's going to be Edwards and Masvidal, surely.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? And not just because of the brawl, and we could talk a little bit about that, because when that happened and everyone was like, "Oh, that's the fight to make," I was kind of like, "Ugh, it's kind of ugly," because a lot of people were saying it just because of the brawl. But when you actually think about it, and when you actually, I guess, put the cards down and see where they match correctly, I think that it does make sense. Unless you're going to give Masvidal a title fight, I don't think it should happen. That's probably the fight that makes most sense right now. And you do have the storyline.
Yeah. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I can see Masvidal getting a title shot. I'm not sure I agree with it, but I can see it. But there's a few guys there now. You're looking at Usman, Askren, Masvidal, Edwards, and Covington in there somewhere. So they're likely going to be matched off in some way against each other. So assuming you do Covington and Usman, then maybe ask, or like, I don't know, you probably do the Masvidal Edwards fight. I think it makes sense. But where do you put it? You do it on a fight night, or do you do it on a pay-per-view card?
I don't like. I'm one of these that I don't really care about that. I'll be perfectly honest. I never really, I don't care, because for me, I know you do, Rob. You're a weirdo. For me, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's on me telly. It's on BT Sports. So who cares?
Doesn't matter for Masvidal either. Apparently, he'll do it backstage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's I want to talk about that. You know, is that altercation? Is that a black eye for the sport, or is that a bit of fun?
Do you know what? This is the weird thing, and it's the weird kind of battle of having in my head, because like that can't happen. You know, that's like, that shouldn't happen. You shouldn't be punching people on a live ESPN broadcast. Yeah, it is. But it doesn't feel as bad as McGregor smashing up a bus, Khabib jumping out of the cage and fighting in the crowd. And I don't have I don't have the data to say why it's not as bad. Do you know what I mean? It just felt like it wasn't as bad. I don't know why.
And now I'm going to throw so I continue the question to you, Rob, and I'll come to you then after, Sean. So continue the question. The fact that it was Jorge Masvidal and Leon Edwards, let's say, for example. But if that was Conor McGregor attacking Nate Diaz, is it highlighted and seen as worse? Is it because I think it would be my personal thing, depending on the fighters. But the fact that it's Masvidal and Edwards, it's just like, that was fucking awesome. Like when I seen it, I was like, that is gangster as fuck. Like, because in Masvidal's defense, right? Like, and when whatever Leon Edwards roared whatever in his Brummy accent to him, Masvidal just walks and his hands are behind his back, and you can see from the blurry footage, it looks like Edwards puts his hands up.
Yeah.
So Masvidal, as he says, you know what I mean, in my neck of the woods, that means someone's going to punch you in the face, and I'm not going to get in the face. So I gave him the what's the line again? Gave him
piece and a soda.
3 piece and a soda, and glided out of there. Well, yeah, somebody I haven't seen, but apparently Edwards was cut from it. He got a cut.
Seen it.
Kind of a small cut on his cheek. Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's kind of the same situation in a sense of the Khabib one, where you're kind of like, I understand why they done that because of where they've come from. Like, I understand why Khabib attacked Dylan Dennis outside the cage, because of the stuff that was said, and he takes that stuff really serious. And on the same hand, you can say Masvidal, he grew up in a situation where there was a lot of like gang situations, all that kind of stuff. And if somebody puts their hands up to him when he's out in that situation, he's probably expecting a punch. So it's kind of ingrained in him to say, oh, well, I'm going to take the first punch. And he said that on that Ariel Helwani interview, whenever that was, like 5 years ago or 4 years ago. So like, that's just built into his head. It's not that it's the right thing to do, but it's expected.
Did either of you watch Brett Okamoto's interview with him after backstage? Yeah, he said, come on, man, you're not going to hit me first.
Yeah.
The way he said that is like, once you put your hands up, you're not hitting me first. That's not happening.
Yeah, it's just,
That was very funny.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know why I feel like it wasn't as bad as the Khabib thing. I just
didn't know his point about the McGregor thing. I think if it's McGregor, like, it's front page of the Daily Mail if it's McGregor.
Maybe it's the stature. Maybe it's the stature of these fighters. Maybe these two guys are in the right position where they're not too famous and they're not too low level. They're just kind of in the middle, so it's not really.
The other example I'll throw, which was John Jones at DC when they were at the presser, and John Jones threw a punch at DC. That was like blown out of proportion. Well, you haven't really heard anything bad about this. It's more so, Masvidal's gangster, isn't he?
Yeah.
So it's a weird one. So I know like the local police in the UK were involved because of the assault or whatever. But I think it's creating a storyline, and let's be honest, it'd be a fun fight. Like if there's like that. But what I have to say before we move on about Masvidal is just his composure and calmness while amongst everything is phenomenal, and that's terrifying for I think for any opponent. Now moving on to a fight that I thought was an absolute robbery. I was shocked when the scorecards were called out. This was Dominic Reyes taking on Volkan Ozdemir. Now I'm just briefly flying through trying to find the stats on the fight and stuff like that. And UFC.com, the stats are it just says STR, so I presume that's striking.
Yeah.
And TD, I presume that's takedown.
Yeah.
So it actually has Dominic Reyes landed 44 punches while Volkan Ozdemir landed 35 punches. Ozdemir got 1 takedown, and the split decision went to Dominic Reyes. I always find when you look at a fighter, when the scores are called out and you see their reaction, that you sort of go, yeah, there's a legit reason for, claiming that was a bit, like, for me. We spoke about Ben Rothwell the week previous, Rob. Like, I had said, I got up and started going into the kitchen to make a cup of coffee, saying, Ben Rothwell won that fight. And 100%, I was in the same situation here. I thought Volkan Ozdemir won the fight. He marched Dominic Reyes down throughout the fight. His shots were more significant. He got the takedown, and he was pushing where the fight went. So for me, I thought he was landing the bigger shots, controlled where the fight took place, got the takedown. I thought it was an easy. I even found it hard to give Reyes a round in this one.
Wow.
So I was surprised. I thought Volkan's game plan was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it was quite interesting. I know sometimes commentary sways you, but I know Stan Hardy and Paul Felder were saying, it looks like Dominic Reyes doesn't know what his game plan is. Like, it just looks like he's out there going, sure, I'll just fight, and he doesn't really have a game plan. Well, you could see Ozdemir was sticking to his game plan to get the win. So a big win for Dominic Reyes with the result. But for me, I thought Ozdemir won this one, and I was really, really surprised.
Yeah,
with it.
I was kind of fine with the decision, to be honest, and I said that to you afterwards. I scored it to Ozdemir. I thought Ozdemir won the fight, but I didn't think it was by this huge margin. And I can see where you can give rounds to Reyes. I thought the second round was really close, and the third round, fourth round was Ozdemir as far as I remember. I think. I'd need to rewatch it, but yeah, I was kind of fine with the decision when it happened. I didn't really say it went. I did think that Dan Hardy and the rest of the commentary team, Paul Felder, were leaning quite heavily on Ozdemir. They just were, and that's probably because that's how that's because that's how they were seeing the fight, how the fight was going. But yeah, I was fine with the decision personally.
I had a 29-28 personally.
Which
I had 2 rounds to 1.
Yeah.
To Ozdemir.
Yeah.
Don't think it was a robbery. Close fight. If Volkan wins 2 rounds to 1, cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, close fight. Not a robbery in my opinion.
Well, you see, what I find weird about it. Like, again, robbery is always a strong word. I felt, I suppose, I was rephrasing it. Like, I just felt that I was the mayor.
How did you score it, now?
Like, I know I just said I struggled to find Reyes a round, but like, he did fight well off the back foot in stages and might have lost. I think the second round was a little up in the air. But I'd have to rewatch it to rescore it. But like, maybe at worst 29-28 for Volkan.
Yeah.
But my point being, asking that, if you look at it, that now puts him on a 3-fight skid, And to us, it's just like, I don't have a problem with it. But, Ozdemir's gone, fucking hell, I'm 0-3 now, you know what I mean, in my last 3 fights. Like, and it puts a lot of pressure on him from somebody who was knocking people out and having fun doing it to all of a sudden now, he's in a vicarious position with the promotion. So he's like 3-3 in the UFC now, So it's it'd be interesting to see what they do with him next. And he's probably, like, for me, I thought that's what Ozdemir's game plan was in this fight. He was a fighter who was on a 2-fight skid and wanted to get back in the win column.
Yeah. And
that's what I thought is how he fought. I thought he navigated the reach of Reyes brilliantly, and I thought he got inside and landed his shots very well, and done well not to be lit up by Reyes. But yeah, it leaves him in a tough position as in 3-3 in the promotion.
Yeah. What other fights stood out? Yeah. What other fights stood out on the card?
I thought Nathaniel Wood looked great.
Yeah.
He's really living up to the prospect. I just love Brad Pickett, like, absolutely smacking the face off before he goes in. But like, that must have been nerve-wracking for him. He's fought in London numerous times, and like, when you look at it, like, Nathaniel Wood is only a young man, like, and he has said that he wants to headline in London. Like, he obviously headlined in London for the likes of Cage Warriors and stuff like that. But when you look at him, like, he's 25 years of age, in that pressure in his hometown, and I thought he looked phenomenal. He done well, and like, he's avoiding being, what we'd mentioned last week in his Cage Warriors title defense, the absolute madness that ensued in the fight. And I think he's moved away from getting into them brawls as well, and he's becoming a lot smarter and avoiding that style of fight.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a beautiful finish. The adjustments he made and everything to get the rear naked choke in was phenomenal. He just latched onto it when opportunity presented itself, and a big win. And I know it sounds silly. It's like almost beating Elkins in a firefight, you know, because he has the damage across his chest. Like, you know, Kwanez has jiu-jitsu tattooed on him, you know what I mean? So to get a win over somebody who, you know, is obviously a legit BJJ, the fact he's gone out and has a BJJ tattoo, like, you know what I mean? I know that sounds silly. I could go out and get a BJJ tattoo and I'm an absolute white belt, but I thought it was a good win against a good opponent, considering I think a lot of people's thoughts would have been Nathaniel Wood would win this on the feet, although he's got submissions in his game. This didn't look like the type of opponent that he wanted to play with on the ground, but he used his experience very well, I thought, to get the position and get the finish.
Yeah, I just thought what I tweeted was he's just like so well rounded, just very, very well rounded. He can do it a lot. He's probably not a master everywhere, but he's very, very good in most places. So great performance. Yeah.
Marty.
I thought that fight.
Sorry, Sean, you just broke up on me there.
Molly McCann, I thought that fight stood out as well. It was a bit of a wall.
Yeah, it was a good fight.
Obviously, Molly's eye was fucked up after the fight.
Yeah, her eye was ridiculously swollen from a broken orbital. Vicious, but very good performance. First English woman to win in the UFC.
Should the doctor have stopped it when he came to have a look?
Huh? Yeah.
Should the doctor have stopped it when he came to have a look?
I think so. I think they should have stopped it because she couldn't see through the eye. Like, I'm glad, what I said was, I'm glad they didn't stop it because she was en route to winning that fight, and she done a great job of avoiding any damage since. But like, if you're putting the doctor on the spot and say, why didn't you stop that fight? What answer does he give you?
I'm not sure he has an answer, to be honest.
Exactly. I'm glad he didn't stop it, but like, come on, that eye was closed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably like, you know, I think I can remember the cut team talking to the cut team. I think it was Tommy on cuts, and I was talking, and we were talking about doctors and stuff like that, and he was telling me something along the lines of when a doctor comes in and tells you how many fingers, there's a percentage that, like, so many times it's 3 or it could be 2, I don't know, but whatever it is, there's a high percentage that it's 2 or 3, and they always say, just fucking guess. Go, yeah, I can see, yeah, there's 2 fingers, yeah, no problem. And they go, yeah, okay, grand, and they let it go. Like a fighter, ironically, our Fight Your Corner last week was about, should, you know, promotions look out for fighters and stuff like that. Should the doctors be a little bit more a fight? They literally, like, they could have an ear hanging off and be like, oh, fucking scratch, like, don't worry about it. And they will try. Interesting as well that when they came back out after that decision, that there was a touch of gloves offered, and the little sneaky sucker punch attack was thrown. But interestingly, and this is, I'd seen Aidan commented on our video of last week, Rich Mitchell, who's the referee, great referee. You see him a lot on the likes of Cage Warriors and the likes as well, and obviously the UFC as well. But he stepped in, and what did we think about that? Like, because it's technically not a foul. It's not in the rule book that you have to be sportsmanship. Like, you can, you know, protect yourselves all the time. Essentially, when the referee says, right, fight, you know what I mean? If you come out to hug somebody, the classic is Mayweather knocking. Who did you knock out doing that with, Sean? Your
the Koto or something?
Was it? Yeah, no, I think it was Maidana, maybe. Maidana.
Might have been, yeah.
But once the referee says fight, you know, he's back under the way. So
protect yourselves at all times.
Yeah.
It was interesting though that he stopped and mentioned that I think he said he might dock a point or something, didn't he?
You can't take a point for that. It like, whether you like it or not, it's dirty, but it's protect yourself at all times. You're in a fight.
Yeah, there's no rule against not being able to do that. Like, there's actually rules that, you know, there's rules against, or there's rules for that, as in you should fight when you're in the fight. Yeah. So like, I do have a problem with it in terms of like sportsmanship and all that. Yeah. But I don't think the referee should have stopped. Like, he shouldn't have stopped it. Not that I don't think he shouldn't have stopped it. He shouldn't have, like he said, I'm pretty sure his words were, I'm not taking a point, I'm just giving you a warning or something along those lines. But like, what are you warning for, being a dirty fighter? It's not against the rules.
And at the moment, there's a lot of highlights, as in, I believe Mark Goddard is stopping doing the new podcast he was doing with Dan Hardy called Listen. Yeah, apparently because of the backlash. Now, I'm not word for word, I'm not sure. I was just saying in the comments a lot of people go, don't give up because of this or whatever. But like referees, they are very susceptible. As you said, Rob, you're very strong in your point there, saying he should not have stopped the fight. He should not have done this. So like the referees are under that criticism constantly. And that's what I was saying with Goddard with the whole Usman thing. Like Goddard is in my opinion, is an exceptional referee because he comes out, but he verbalizes everything. He goes through everything, be it through Twitter or whatever. I know him and Anik had a bit of a back and forth. I'm going off a little subject, but I just mean the referees are constantly under a magnifying glass, and they might say something in the moment. They're like saying, "I'm not docking a point." He might have been saying that because she was sort of looking at him, going, "What the fuck?" And he's going, "Look, I'm not docking a point. I'm just saying, stop being a dick. Like, don't do that." But to us hearing it, we're hearing he's saying, "I'm not taking a point," and we're thinking, why is he warning her saying I'm going to take a point? So it just, the words could be misconstrued at that time as Goddard was when he said to Usman, it's a fight.
I think it was just... referees are just as introspective as well. Like if you look at Goddard on Twitter, he came out and said, I used the wrong choice of words. So he's learned. He looked at what he said and he came back and he learned from it. He made a mistake. He opened up to it. So like for all the criticism they do learn from the mistakes, like, and you can only that's all you can ask really as well.
Quickly
get it 100% of the time.
Quickly going through some of the other big results. Mark Diakese had a big win over Joseph Duffy. What's your quick thoughts on that fight?
I thought it looked exceptional. He went back to, that was the Mark Diakese that the UFC signed for me. You see what it meant to him emotionally. Joe Duffy just could not get inside and get his shots off. He uses kicks to attack, like that Taekwondo background. It was great to see Daz Morris back in his corner as well, and it looked like, and Diakese openly said like he moved away from ATT because he felt it wasn't all about him. Do you know what I mean? He was just a part of the factory that is ATT, because it's such a big gym. That's not anyway a slander. There's just such a big gym with so many fighters. Well, when he came back home, everything was specialised to Mark Diakese, and I think that was showcased on Saturday. I think he looked absolutely phenomenal. Big win over a big name in Joe Duffy. Duffy just couldn't get off by the looks of it. Diakese, when he started doing all the Street Fighter shit, that step spin, step on the tie, the side kick on the tie and spinning kick, phenomenal stuff, and that's when you know that Diakese is having fun in there.
Sean?
Yeah, I thought Diakese looked fucking phenomenal, like, and I really loved afterwards how emotional he was. Like, it meant so much to him. That was really cool to see.
Yeah, I just love as well. Dan Hardy was just like, asking him questions, and clearly Diakese was like, I don't really want to answer questions. And Dan Hardy was just short of saying, answer my fucking question, answer it. It was funny, but great performance.
I thought Duffy didn't look great.
No,
quite poor.
Do you know what? Actually, Duffy kind of reminded me of Mark Diakese in past fights there, where they started pretty badly, or the other guy started really well and they just couldn't get into the fight, and that's happened to Mark Diakese a few times. So I thought that was a really good performance by Diakese.
Quick note, I know we're moving on, but Jack Marshman and John Phillips, I thought John Phillips had done enough to win that fight, but the interesting story, as you just told me, Sean, before we started recording here, was Jack Marshman says he packed his bags and ran from the army to fight in the UFC. So essentially he wasn't given clearance, so he went AWOL from the army so he could fight on the UFC, and said he'll just go and hear the wrath of trouble when he goes back on Monday. Well, that's pretty badass to come up, and I think there was a lot of booing in the fight. Like I said, I thought John Phillips done enough, but Marshman, as he said, you don't want to get hit by a guy called White Mike Tyson. You know what I mean? He obviously carries power, so why would I get in a gunfight with him? So he fought off the back foot, and he's like, that's boxing. Crowd weren't happy with it, but I could see why John Phillips thought he won the fight. I thought he won the fight. But badass by Marshman just to go AWOL from the army.
Needed a win going back to the barracks, didn't he?
Big time, imagine going back after a loss, wouldn't have gone well. Something else that happened, go on, sorry.
It's one more big win. We had Danny Henry on last week. Unfortunately, he lost to Dan Ige, but great performance by Danny Ige. But I thought it was just a situation where Henry got caught cold, and Danny Ige capitalised on it. But really, really good performance by Ige, and Danny will be back, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah, a long time off.
Very good in his 2 fights before that.
Yeah,
he was out injured as we spoke about for almost a year to the day. So he will come back, and Ige just started absolutely like a bull in a china shop. Absolutely phenomenal by him, and got the finish. But excellent work. Something else that happened in the UFC London was Michael the Count Bisping is now an inductee in the modern wing of the UFC Hall of Fame. It was quite funny because Dan Hardy was like, of course this was going to happen. You know, he's the only guy in the UK that this honor could be due because he outdoes everybody else. And you're sort of go, Dan, you're sort of sitting on yourself, mate.
Yeah,
but,
you fought for a title, Dan. You've done pretty well.
Yeah, you've done well, but 100% you got to look at like Michael Bisping. His career in the UFC is absolutely insane. Like he started in the UFC in 2006.
Yeah,
you know, like he start like the Ultimate Fighter. It was like season 3, was it season 3? He started in the Ultimate Fighter 2006. To then like go through. So like, there's loads of fighters that have been in the promotion, but you know they might have a loss and they go off and they'll fight in like whatever, like go back to Cage Warriors or fight in Bellator or Strike Force or whatever and come back. But like Michael Bisping, 2016, right up until his last fight. Well, I unfortunately finished on a loss, but you know he's an insane, an incredible fighter and a legendary. And he's the absolute, like for me, he's what mixed martial arts is about. You know, he will tell you he's not the most whatever fighter, but it was just his grit and determination to get in there, do what he done. He had to have like memorable wins over Anderson Silva, to then get that win over Luke Rockhold on short notice to become the title. Then he got redemption against Dan Henderson. Some might disagree, but then he got to share the cage with George St. Pierre as well, which is, you know, when he looks back at his career, the highlights in that career from Michael Bisping, absolutely phenomenal.
And he can basically only see out of one eye as well.
Yeah, it was, yeah. He had an incredible career, all the way back to those Ultimate Fighter days. And I remember watching him all in the Ultimate Fighter, and he was just one of those personalities you kind of had to tune in for. Very, very colourful personality, interesting guy, and played his role that he kind of created for himself really, really well. You know, the hated British guy, almost like an old school pro wrestling type thing, especially him against Dan Henderson. It was like the real like American hero versus the evil Brit. But yeah, yeah, it was. He had an incredible career and definitely worthy of the honor. And I love the video package that the UFC put together for him as well. Really, really good, and it kind of highlighted his ups and his downs in his career because he had plenty of both. But he definitely had more ups than downs, I'd say. But great career, and congratulations to him.
Yeah, phenomenal stuff. And he's moved on, of course, into the broadcast booth now, which is excellent work as well. So he's changing his game and he's adapting to continue to be a big part of the promotion. So I'd imagine, I'm saying since 2006, he could be still there in 2026. You know what I mean? He could be there further again, just once he keeps going with working with the promotion, be it on ESPN or whoever they're with on their next renewal. Other news then, it's a bit of a weird news, and you know, Tony Ferguson's wife filed for a temporary domestic violence restraining order, which revealed disturbing details of his quote psychotic break. So this basically is which he lost the plot by the sounds of it. He believes she was a witch and that he was being watched by cameras in the refrigerator. In a recent post on Instagram, he confirmed the UFC are helping him find the help he needs. Like, apparently he was smashing through the walls and everything trying to get cameras that they're watching him and stuff like that. So this just seems like a mental, you know, Tony Ferguson's always been a bit of a wild man, and you know, people sort of, the way he goes on is peculiar, and this whole Tony Ferguson is the type of guy to do whatever. But this just looks like an absolute somebody who had a mental breakdown. To think that your wife is a witch and, you know, people are watching you, like, shows the pressure or whatever that's in his life, and hopefully he gets the support and the help he needs. And it's good to see the UFC. And I see Conor McGregor reached out to him as well, and he sort of put it in that style where he said Tony Ferguson is the type of guy to follow up, but get better and better and better and come back stronger. And so there was a lot of support by the MMA community. But very sad news as well on the back of. Now, I think we must mention, like, I don't think there was any violence. I know.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say.
His wife actually spoke about it, and she said he's a great husband, great father. He's just going through some shit. Yeah,
he basically, she said that he never harmed them. There was never actual, like when you say domestic violence, the first thing you think of is, you know, the thing that happened to the other UFC fighter recently, Ostovich, but it wasn't like that. It was just that Tony Ferguson's obviously going through a very bad time mentally, and he's smashing up the house, and apparently he took his child and basically took it, ran and changed the locks and kind of locked themselves in their house. Didn't harm the child or anything like that, but obviously he's putting people around him in a very bad situation and putting himself in a bad situation and potentially dangerous, I guess. So hopefully he does get the help that he does need. It's, we don't really want to speculate on what the problem is. A lot of people are talking about, is it CTE related stuff? Is it just a chemically induced thing? Like, we could see that all the way back in the Ultimate Fighter house when Tony Ferguson kind of went off the rails on the drink, and he started saying some crazy stuff to one of the other castmates, saying like, where's your daughter and all this, because he's had problems with his daughter. So clearly Tony Ferguson, when he's on alcohol and maybe if he's on some other stuff, he has this bad chemical reaction in his brain, and maybe it's something like that. But you don't really want to speculate on those things. Hopefully it's not anything too bad, and hopefully it's a mental thing that he can get fixed by going through some mental rehab or something like that. But scary stuff when you do read the kind of details that were brought up.
Yeah, very scary.
Yeah.
Moving it on, because there's not really more you can add to, unfortunately, news like that. It's more so just
best
to make aware.
Yeah, best wishes.
Yeah. Santiago Ponzinibbio has said he is tired of waiting for RDA, and that he wants to welcome Tyron Woodley back to the octagon following his loss to Kamaru Usman. Now, when I seen this news, I was like, yeah, that is a good fight to make. You know what I mean? As in, Woodley's got to get back in there. Ponzinibbio's on a good run. Do you know what I mean? He's a top contender, so it's a good fight for both Ponzinibbio. If he was to get the win, he could say, I was just beating the former champion. And if it's Woodley, he's like, I've just beaten one of the top guys. So he puts him right back in the frame as well. I'll throw it to you first, Sean, and mix it up a bit. What do you think of that news and that attempt of matchmaking by Ponzinibbio himself?
We lost Sean for a second.
We've lost Sean, so I will throw it to you then, Robin. So Sean gets back.
He's back. There he goes.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Internet down home having is crap, we're very rural down here. But yeah, I think it makes sense. Ponzinibbio's on a good run. Just beat ODA. No, who did you just beat?
Ponzinibbio.
Ponzinibbio just beat.
Ponzinibbio, I'll get that up now. It's not RDA because he's been looking for that fight.
Yeah, he's been waiting on RDA. Yeah. It was in Argentina.
It was Neil Magny.
Yeah, Neil Magny in Argentina.
Yeah. He's on a good streak. Woodley's going to have to come back. The other guys, like we spoke of it earlier, are sort of matched up. Masvidal, Askren, Usman, Covington. So yeah, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, and I think as well for Tyron Woodley, it's a good fight because you could talk about putting him in there against someone coming off a loss because he's coming off a loss, but he's the former champion and went on a serious run as that champion, so it makes sense in that way. And it's a way better fight for Ponzinibbio than RDA would be, because RDA isn't on the best run of his career. So a win over Tyron Woodley, even though he just had a loss, it's still the former champion who was on a great run. So I like the fight, and that makes sense.
Yeah, again, look at the bump that Masvidal's getting because he just knocked out Darren Till, who just lost. So it's still, you know what I mean, once you're up the top end of the top 10, a big win is a big win. And I just think beating the former champion for his confidence as well, is Woodley. A lot of people thought Woodley wasn't going to get beat for a long time. So if he got a win over him, you know what I mean, it puts him right in line to be like, yeah, I'm the number one guy.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor said during an interview at the Chicago St. Patrick's Day parade that he is in negotiations and plans to return fighting in July. So this is one that was being backed and forth. We've had the whole thing of he won't fight in a co-main against stuff like that. But it's good to hear news of Conor McGregor stepping back into the octagon. He's obviously over in Chicago and stuff like that. He was at the ice hockey game. I think he was leading the parade in Chicago. But yeah, good to hear news that Conor McGregor is stepping back into the cage.
Yeah, definitely. I think likely probably that International Fight Week card. They usually do a couple of the tough finale and stuff like that around then, so probably that one.
Yeah.
Not really a lot of word in the last couple of weeks on who he's going to fight. Like the Cerrone talk has kind of died down.
Him and Nate had a little thing, didn't they?
Yeah.
And Nate just wrote 185, and Conor replied with, "I don't care about weight" or something.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck that way.
Conor probably can't even fight at 185 legally with a commission. It's too late.
How does he make 185? Like, just get a little bit fat, like?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
What did he
seems
weigh against for the 175? We had 168 in his tracksuits, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, 168. The other one that he put out obviously because he was back watching the Bruins playing in Boston. He put out about Max Holloway, and then Max Holloway absolutely came back like with a tyrant.
Yeah.
Max Holloway had them tweets saved and ready to go
Yeah.
from months ago. Absolutely loved it though. You hit the link and it brought you to Google, and it made you Google Joe Duffy 51 seconds.
Yeah,
phenomenal
it was pretty
stuff,
funny.
Max Holloway. Well played, but that potentially could be a fight. I know, Max has a fight lined up that he needs to focus on, but we have all screened for it. Max Holloway, Conor McGregor rematch because they're both evolved. They're both different fighters, so they went in.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's going to be International Fight Week, and hey, he'll get his main event. Conor McGregor on the tough finale main event. Imagine. When does Max Holloway fight Dustin Poirier? When is that?
I'll check that.
Yeah, check that because it does line up. Like if he does win that fight, it does line up for a rematch there. But then that's an interim title, so you're looking at McGregor coming back to get a shot at an interim title, which it's ridiculous. But a lot of people have a problem with that.
Exactly. Do you think the UFC aren't going to make it because of that reason?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, they're fighting on the 13th of April.
Yeah, so a little bit close, but you could definitely manage it. I just hope it's the Diaz fight. I hope to just do that Diaz trilogy, get that done with, get it over with. Not at 185. I'd love to see it at 155 if Nate wants to cut the weight, but I doubt that's going to happen. So we'll probably see it at 170 if it happens. But it is good to see him coming back, or at least saying he's going to come back. So, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the big news from this week. The stories that jumped out, obviously we were a bit UFC London heavy there, but I think a lot of the stories this week came from it. So yeah, comment where we right. Do you agree with what's next for Darren Till, Masvidal? What's right? What's wrong? Let us know in the comments below. But let's move it on and let's get back to educating young Sean. This is Educating Young Sean. So Sean, it's time to report with your homework from last week. We gave you 2 fights. We gave you Frankie Edgar against Gray Maynard that went down at UFC 125, and the other fight was Pat Berry against Congo at UFC on Versus 4. So let's start with the Frankie Edgar Gray Maynard fight. First of all, what was your take on the fight?
That fight was crazy. The first thing I thought, they're both very small for 155, but you're kind of looking at Edgar now, you're like, how is he a champion at 155 compared to the size of some of the guys now?
Yeah.
But watching the first round, like, I don't know how he stayed in the fight. I don't know how. You can argue whether ref should have stopped it, I don't know. But first thing I was thinking was Ortega was the first man to stop Edgar. So I was watching this fight and I was like, Edgar doesn't get stopped in this.
Yeah.
I deducted from that. I was like, Edgar doesn't get stopped in this. This fucking goes on out of this. Like, and in the second round, he came out like he started the first round. It's like the first round never happened.
Yeah.
His conditioning's insane. Brilliant fight. Like,
I lost him a little bit.
That's
the Cavan internet. He will be back though. We've experienced this before. He will be back. He's back.
He's
on my back, yeah. I said, all I said was I scored at a draw personally. But I know we guys were chatting off air. The 10-8 rounds, you basically had to murder someone to get one back then.
Yeah.
I think nowadays that's probably a draw.
Yeah. What was your thoughts on Frankie Edgar fighting at 155? Did you notice how much smaller he was than the other guys?
Yeah, he was so quick. Actually, on my notes, I was just looking before we start talking. He's so quick at 155. His footwork is immense at 155. He's just so quick.
Yeah.
Not the most powerful at 155. That was quite clear as well. He never really did to Maynard what Maynard did to him in that first round.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wait till you see Gray Maynard, Frankie Edgar 3. But yeah, that was an insane fight. I remember watching it and like, to my memory, I backed Frankie Edgar and I just thought, yeah, fight's over, it's done. But considering how we got through them rounds and the fight was just an absolute insane. It's one of them fights. Well, what I love about this little section is it makes us think back of fights, and there's the obvious ones, and I know when we're talking about it, Rob, when we're picking our fights, we try to not pick the obvious one. We always try to give something that's slightly different and one that sort of really showcases MMA for different reasons. And I think this fight was absolutely it was a cracker to give. So well played, Rob. If I was wearing a hat, I would tip it to you.
Thanks.
Yeah, brilliant fight. Really enjoyed that one.
Second fight is absolutely completely different. This is a heavyweight fight that they literally just threw bones at each other. Pat Berry, Czech Congo. What did we think of this?
I thought the stoppage was crap. I thought Mogliato was very slow in stop it. Fuck me. He took a lot of hits after going on the ground. Like, was it Czech Congo? Yeah, he looked out. I don't think he was out. Maybe a flash for a second he was out, but rose like Jesus from the dead, like, and came out and knocked him out.
But that's the point. We lost there again, so we can talk. But like, for me, if you can still hear us, Sean, that's the funny thing about it. This is the thing that they were saying about what fight was it recently? Dillashaw and Garbrandt or whatever. They were saying, they could have let him fight on a little bit or whatever. And they're saying, because look at the Czech Congo fight, like, because Rogan was screaming, he's out. What's Dan Henderson? Or what's Dan Henderson? What's Dan Mogliato letting this fight continue for? He's out. He's done. This is over. Stop the fight. And next minute, boom, and Pat Berry's out, and you're like, holy shit! I remember watching that live as well. But it's a very different fight to the Gray Maynard fight. But that's probably one of the craziest comeback wins. I think in the UFC ever.
Yeah. What did you guys think? I thought Mogliato was very slow in after Barry went down.
Oh, you mean when Barry went out, he was still slow?
Yeah. When the finish happened, I thought Mogliato was very slow in to stop that. Like,
I need to go back and watch that part of it to see, because obviously you're so like mesmerized by the 6 knockouts that happens throughout the fight that, like, it's, you know.
Got paid out twice if you back the KO win.
Yeah, that's Pat Berry got knocked out with a knife. He still lost the fight. But that was an absolute insane fight. So out of popcorns, 5 popcorns, what would you give Maynard and
popcorns?
Out of 5 popcorns, because you're viewing it, what would you give Maynard and Edgar?
That's a 5. Yeah, that was a cracker of a fight.
5 popcorns, very different fight. Obviously ended in the first, but how many popcorns is Pat Berry, Czech Congo?
That one's getting a 4. Just the craziness gives it a 4, but it didn't go 5 rounds, so it's hard to give it the slugfest rating of the previous one.
That makes sense.
So Rob, you have to give Sean a fight this week. I know you put a lot of effort into your research. What fight are you throwing at Sean this week?
So this fight happened back in 2005. It's in the UFC. It was at UFC 52, which was headlined by Randy Couture and Chuck Liddell, but it's not the main event. The fight is Matt Hughes versus Frank Trigg, number 2. Fun fact, Dana White's favourite fight of all time, apparently. He said it a few times.
Ooh, that's a good fight. Have you ever watched Matt Hughes fight before, Sean? Every time I ask him a question, he's gone.
Am I back?
Yeah.
I'm back.
You're back. Congo.
I've seen him working with the UFC and stuff at the events and that, and just seen him around, but no, never seen him play.
Yeah, all right.
Frank Trigg, you probably have seen in the cage, but as a referee, not a fighter.
Twinkle toes.
Twinkle toes. My fight is this takes place in 2009. It's the Ultimate Fighter 9 finale. Rob, you're very good at picking these out from your... Any ideas?
Ultimate Fighter 9 finale. Is that...
If you get this, I'm hugely impressed.
Yeah. Is that Diego Sanchez?
Yes.
Clay Guida?
Oh, my God, yes.
I'm a freak.
Memory. You are a freak. Yeah. Diego Sanchez taking on Clay Guida is my fight to watch. That's set to place 2009. Phenomenal fight. Unbelievable fight. So you've got 2 absolute beauts there: Frank Trigg, Matt Hughes, and Diego Sanchez, Clay the Carpenter Guida. So you'll enjoy them, Sean.
What I'm going to do as well is I'm down home in Cavan for the week, so I'm going to get my dad to watch them with me as well.
Get a review.
We'll get your dad on the show next week.
Yeah, if he's not too traumatized.
Yeah, definitely.
Just for that.
Yeah.
So it's now that time of the week for that weird and wonderful news. So Sean, what is your weird and wonderful news this week?
So what we have is a video from, obviously Ben Askren was in London and he took part in a fighter Q&A with Dan Hardy over the weekend. And so a man from Limerick steps up to ask Askren a question or tell him something, not ask him.
Does to everybody else.
Okay.
There he goes.
Cool. Thank you.
Oh,
Next question, please.
Well, Ben, how's it going? It's the 21st century. Take off the bootcut jeans and flip-flops, you fat
Grand
fuck.
Irish accent anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how like attentively he's listening to it.
Yeah.
Where's that
And
man?
then has to
Right
add.
at the bottom.
Yeah.
What
What's a
did he
boot cut?
say?
Ben, I haven't bought a pair of jeans in a decade. I don't know what you're talking about.
One thing that you guys can't see from up there, he's got a smiley face tattooed on the top of his foot. He's wearing flip-flops so you guys can see the
Smiley
tattoo. That's
face
what that's all
tattoo as
about.
well.
Ben,
He is a gas-looking chap, isn't he, Ben Askren?
you look
Yeah.
like a beanbag with arms and legs. Go fuck yourself.
What did you say? You look like a
Beanbag.
beanbag
Does
with
everybody
Beanbag with arms.
A beanbag with arms.
And boom, roasted.
Yeah.
Askren takes it well, doesn't he? He enjoys
Askren's
that.
great crack.
Jeez, that sounds like he had a few points in him anyway, having a crack anyway over it. Fair play to him. Askren took it well, you know what I mean? As in, the crowd getting behind and singing ole, ole, ole. Yeah, that's a class little pick. But Sean, I believe that's a friend of a friend, is it?
Yeah, so like I say, your man was from Limerick, and I have a couple of friends from Limerick in college, and they sent me on the video.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Why, when all these mad things happen at UFC press conferences, why is it always some Irish chap with a point in his hand? Always. Remember Holly Holm, your man singing?
Only home.
Yeah, and then obviously
yeah,
all the
Serenade,
yeah.
Polly Home, yeah.
It's always some Irish chap. Very funny.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Good way to end the show. So this has been A Few Good Fights, episode 3, a home edition. Expect, as we said at the top of the show, expect that when it's a bank holiday, we'll probably be from home and not in studio. As pleasure as always talking. We look forward to the fights at the weekend. But thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, subscribe, hit like, leave a review on iTunes. Only if it's 5 stars, 4 stars, or 3 stars. Don't bother. Apart from that, we're back in studio, and we'll see you next week. Peace.
So apparently if you press this button somewhere here, it subscribes and you get all the notifications for the show. So hit that button there.
You have to click the bell though to get the notifications
here.
down the bottom.
Make sure you hit that and they get the ringer things because Rob didn't know. So it's the button
Yeah.
there or there.
It's somewhere roughly around that area.